Hi loves, welcome back to the channel Style by C. On today's tutorial, we'll be on how to make this beautiful bustier gown with open back and loops. Do subscribe to the channel, share to friends. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave your comments, your suggestions. Alright, and turn on your notification bell. We'll be dropping back to back interesting videos. Alright, see ya in our next video. So guys, this is my pattern paper and this is my basic body. That's what I'm trying to create. This is my shoulder line. I marked 8 inches. I'm working with 8 inches for my shoulder measurements. Okay, so this is what I have from this center point, 8 inches. So from this point I'm coming down to 1 inches. This for my shoulder slope or slant. Then my neck width I'm working with is 3 inches. So from this point I'm going to connect it to my shoulder slant, which is this way. Then for my chest line, this is my chest line. What you do is you divide your bust measurement by 6, then you add 1.5 inches to it to get your actual armhole measurements where your chest line will lie. Okay, so this is mine. So I'll label it as C. This is my bust point. B. This is my under bust, and this is my half length. All right. The next thing I'm going to do now is to divide my armhole measurements into 2. So this is where my center point lies. So from that point now, I'm going to be coming in by half an inch. This is to enable me create my armhole curve. Then on my chest line, I'm going to go ahead and insert my bust measurements. Quarter of your bust measurements. This is what I have. Then I'm going to connect my armhole. So this is what I have. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do now is to divide my bust span measurements, my nipple to nipple measurements. So I'm working with 4 inches. I'll mark it on my bust line or bust points. I'm also going to mark it on my under bust and also on my half length. Then I'm going to connect the points together. Okay, so having done this now, the next thing to do is to insert our dart intakes. So on my under bust, I'm going to be marking from the side bust. I'm going to mark 1.25 inches. The same thing on my half length or my waistline, 1.25 inches. Then on the inside, I'm going to be marking 1 inch. 1 inch. Then I'm going to use a rule to connect the dots together. So this is what I have. Please discard this and this. Now the next thing to do is to use your curved rule and connect it to your under bust, to your bust point, sorry, which I've done this way. So this is what I have here. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide my shoulder slope into 2. The remaining of my shoulder slope, whatever I have there, I'm going to divide it into 2. And I have 5 inches. When I divide it, is 2.5. Now from this point in, I'm connecting it to my bust line. So this is what I have. Okay, now the next thing to do is there are different ways to achieve where we're going to be creating where our net is going to stop. All right, that is creating a new upper part for our net. So you can decide to start from your shoulder line. You mark 6 inches, which is fine. You can also decide to, from what you have, the difference between your bust and your under bust point and under bust, which is 3 inches. So from your bust line, what you do is you just mark 3 inches up. This from your bust point. From there you place and mark your 3 inches. Okay, or you do it whatever you have here, divide it into 2. From your chest line, like we have here, 1.5 inches. From your chest line you go up by 1.5 inches. Okay, so now here depends on how deep you want yours to be or how exposed you want your cleavage to come out. The choice is totally yours. So either work with 6 from your shoulder line, or you do it the other way around. Anyone is good. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be working with this. All right, that's what I'm going to be working with. I'm going to go ahead and use 2 inches for mine. I'm going to be working with 2 inches from my chest line. I'm going to be working with 2 inches. Reason is I don't want my cleavage to be open. So now I'm going to go ahead and recreate another line, straight line. So on this line now, I'm going to mark 0.75 inches on both sides of my line. This is for to tighten my overbust. Now from there, now I'm going to connect it to my bust line. This is what I have, and this is what I have. Okay, having done this, now the next thing to do is to create my curve inwards. You can either decide to keep it ½ inch below your chest line, or your chest line, or your bust line, depending on how deep you want yours to be. But for this, I'm going to be stopping it on my chest line. This is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do now is, we have removed 1.5 inches here, 0.75 on both sides. I'm going to be adding it back to my pattern paper, which is here. Then ½ an inch for stitching. You can decide to add 1 inch, but I prefer using ½ an inch. Having done this, I'll go ahead and create my new armhole. So this is what I'm going to be having. So from this point now, I'm going to create my curve. So this is what my curve is going to be looking like. Then I'm going to measure. Oh, my tape is already going out. So I'm going to measure what I have here. I have 0.75 inches. I'll add it back to this point, plus 1 inch seam allowance. These are not my actual seam allowance. I'll still add my seam allowance. Then coming to my waistline, my waist is 28. When I divide it, I have 7 inches. And we remove 2.25 here. I'll add it back here, plus 1 inch stitching allowance. Okay, so having done this, now the next thing to do is to add my actual seam allowance. So my actual seam allowance I'm working with is 2 inches. That is what I'm going to go ahead to do now. Then I'll connect all of them together. So this is what I have for my bust area. So the next thing to do now is to mark our neck depth. So for the case of this tutorial, I'm going to be using 3 inches depth for my neck depth. 3 inches for my neck depth. And this is my 3 inches. I'll connect it to my neck width. So this is the cutting process. So having cut it out this way, the next thing to do now is to this will be for my net, and these other parts will be for the bustier. I'm going to go ahead and cut this part off. Okay. So guys, this is what we have. Sorry, I folded this paper when I was doing this stuff, so I'm gonna have to cut it out. So this is what our bustier will look like. The next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and transfer these pieces to our fabric. Then we're also going to be drafting out for our back piece. Okay, guys, this is for our back piece. Just this normal drafting for our basic body. We are not including a zip to it because there's no zip for the upper part of our back. All right, so the next thing I marked here is my 4 inches. That is the nipple to nipple measurement. That is what I marked here, 4 inches. So now I'm going to be coming down from the chest line 1 inches. This is for my darts, where my darts is going to stop. So then at this point now, my half length, I'm going to mark 0.75 inches on the down part here for my darts intake, and I'm going to connect the lines together. So from my 1 inch down to this point, and from this point down to this point, this is for my dart intake. Okay, then I'm going to come over to the neck piece. For my neck area, the neck depth I'm going to be working with for the back piece is going to be 2 inches, and I'm connecting it to this point, which is the neck width. The same neck width I worked for the front piece, that's what I'm using here, which is 3 inches. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do, so guys, now from this my neck depth, I'm going to be coming down to 2 inches. Okay, so this is my 2 inches. You can decide to work with 1.5 inches, is still fine. Now from these 2 inches, I'm going to be connecting it to this 4 inches that line I have here. That is my nipple to nipple. So I'm trying to create with a free hand. So at this point now, I decided to reduce my inches I have here. Remember, I marked 2 inches first, so I'm reducing it to 1 inches, because I think that 2 inches is a little bit bold and big. So just get what you want. So this is what I have. I'm discarding this first one. This is the one I'm going to be working with. So this is how our back is going to be. So here now is where our loops will lie, this center part of our distance. So this part now is going off. We're not working with this part. We're going to be cutting out this area. But before then, we're going to go ahead and insert our measurements. So this is 8.5, our bust measurements. We're going to go ahead and add seam allowance to it. So I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches seam allowance. Then here is 7 inches for our waist measurements, and we removed 1.5 inches for our dart intake. You add it back plus 1 inch stitching allowance, then 2 inches your seam allowance. All right, then I'm going to connect the two together. Having done this, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece out. So cutting it out now. Okay, so guys, I still went ahead to do it this way. So this is what we are going to be having. This is what our back piece is going to look like. Now remember, we're going to be having a tulle or a net at the upper part. So this is going to be our lace or net or whatever we want to use at the upper part. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out from here. So this is our Ankara piece and this is our lace piece. Okay, so this is what we're going to have. This is what it's going to look like. Now you're going to go ahead and transfer it to our fabrics. So guys, now we're going to be cutting out our skirt piece. I'm going to be cutting out the front and back together. Alright, so I folded my fabric into 2 first and folded it into 4 again. Now this is for my front and this is for my back. I left some inches space or some space for my zip allowance, about 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. Alright, having done this, now the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the full length of my skirt piece. So the full length of our gown is 44. We're adding 2 inches to it, making it 46 inches. So this is what I have. Note, you can decide to make yours longer or shorter. So this is 46 inches, and the half length I'm working with is 16 inches, and this is where it lies. So this is my 16 inches. Now this is my center point. From this point now, I'm going to mark my waist measurements. My waist measurement is 7 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Okay, then from this start point where my waistline is, I'm going to come down to 9 inches. This is where my hip measurements will fall. So the hip measurements I'm working with is 9.5 inches. I'm going to add extra 2 inches to it for seam allowance, and this is what I have. Now I'm going to connect my waist to my hip measurements. This is what I have. Then I'm going to curve the bottom part of it. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out now. Then I'll notch the center points. Then I'll cut off this period. So this is what we have. We're going to step this aside and transfer our pattern pieces for the upper bodice to our fabrics now. So guys, for the first layer of the sleeve, we are going to be using 21 inches long. But that's still 21 inches and a half. 21.5 inches. So now I'm just going ahead to create our normal sleeve, basic sleeve. So from this point, I'm coming down by 4 inches. This is my biceps line. So I will divide my bust measurement by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then here is where my wrist is going to be. I'll measure what I have on my wrist. I have 7 inches. I need a little allowance. I'm going to be using 8 inches, which is 4 plus 1.5 to 2 inches. Now I'm going to connect it from this point now. I'll connect it to what I have here. Alright, then from this tip I'm going to be making a curve into this line. So this is what I have. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. This is what I have. Yeah, we're cutting this out. So this is what we have. I'll go ahead and notch my center point on my center. Now, this is what my sleeve looks like. I'm also going to go ahead. For the second step of our sleeve, will be about 6 inches to 7 inches long, and the length is going to be at least times 3, 2 to 3, or 2.5 of your wrist, whatever you have on your wrist area, times 3 times 2 times 2.5 of it. Okay, so this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So what you're going to do with this is, this is our sleeve, right? Our first sleeve, first step. So what you will do is to plant it on this layer. So hem the bottom part, go ahead and plait it on your wrist area. Alright, so that's what you're going to do to this sleeve. So this is for my back too. For the bottom part of it, this area, I'm going to be adding about half an inch extra to it. Okay, the reason is because you're going to be joining it to our Ankara piece. I decided to add more than half an inch. Okay, so that's what I have here. So this is what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out entirely. So this is this is the pattern for my upper part for the lace. Now I decided to reduce my neck depth for my front because this is going to be a torso neck and I don't want it to be too tight on me. And we are also adding a band to it. Okay, so that's why I'm reducing it by half an inch. Okay, so I reduced my 2 to 3.5 inches instead of working with instead of working with 3 inches. Then at the bottom part here too, I went ahead to add half an inch to my 2. So this is what we have. This is what our 2 looks like. Our net or lace looks like. So yep. So guys, at this point I've gone ahead to transfer my pattern paper to my fabric, and this is what I have. Alright, so this is what I have. This is my center piece, and so I've also gone ahead to cut out a lining for it. Then I made a casing. Like this is going to be serving as my casing for my loops. Okay, just cut 2 inches of 2 inches material. Go ahead and fold it to make a casing. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to be marking where my loops is going to lie. Then another thing is for my neck area, for the back piece. So this is our neck. This is what it looks like. The next thing I did there was to also go ahead and use a cotton bias to pipe my neck. So you can decide to turn it out with another piece of lace, or maybe use a tool to turn it out. But for this case, I used a cotton bias to turn it out. All right, now I'm going to be marking where my casing is going to be, or where my loops is going to lie. So I have 8 inches long here. I'm going to mark the center point, which is 4. Then the other one will be at 2, and this other one will be at 6. Okay, so you can decide to still make it add more casing to it, which is totally fine. Maybe let's use 1.5, 3. Maybe use another chalk so it will not be confusing. So 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, and somewhere here, so it will be more flat, it will not be scanty. All right, so here the same thing. I have 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, and the last one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pieces my casing, place it on it, and turn it out with my lining. But before then, I'm going to be placing my lace material on top here, this way. Use my pin and hold it down. Then for my casing, I'm going to be placing it here. Okay, I'm going to pieces it and place it here. So go ahead and do that quickly. So guys, at this point now, I'm done with it. This is our back piece. I'm done with it. This is what it looks like. I'm gonna head to join the two for our back together. This is what we're having. Okay, now the next thing to do is to join it to the down part of our skirt or gown. So now for the upper part, this is what I have. I've also gonna head to cut out a lining for each of these pieces. Now I'm going to be running a stitch on it. I will drop a link on how to cut out your breast pad. It's going to be on the description box. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch on this, the same thing with my lining piece. Okay, so guys, at this point now, I'm done joining my cup together and also my lining. I'm also gonna head to join them together. This is what I have. Now this is my tool. Okay, this is my lace, the upper part of my blouse, or sorry, the upper part of the gown. So now I'm going to be joining it to this piece. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and identify which side is the rough part and which side is the right side. So I think this is the right side and this is the rough part. Now I'm going to place it center to center, and I'm going to pin it down. Okay, now I'm going to bring this is my lining and this is the center, and I'm going to place the two of them together. This is what I have. All right, now to sew this, I'm not going to start from this center point directly. I'm going to adjust this tool of mine, so like this way, like, then I'm going to arrange my piece, and I'm going to be using my pin to hold it down. So at this point, you can go ahead and hold it down with your pins, which is totally fine. So I'm going to be starting from, I'm not going to start from this center point. I'm going to start from somewhere here and start running my stitch till I get to the other end. Okay, when I'm done with this part, I'll take over from this end too. So when I'm done, this is what it looks like. This is what I have. Now the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is I'm going to open it up this way, go ahead and top stitch on my lining. Okay, so this is my fabric and this is my lining. Place it together this way, go ahead and top stitch on it. All right, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Please do it carefully, gently. So when I'm done, I'll go ahead and join this piece to my skirt part. So guys, the next thing we are cutting out is a facing for our skirt part. Okay, because we are having loops at the back of our skirts. So we need to make a casing for it. So this is what I'm going ahead to trace out from this part. So I just placed my skirts on top of a folded fabric into two. All right, just trace it out. That is what I'm doing. All right, so this is what I have. Now I'm going to be introducing the upper part of my back piece. So this is one of it. So I'm checking the one that is going to match. No, this one is going to match. So this is a match. Now this is what I have. I'm going to be placing it here this way. So I've placed it here in this form. Then I'm going to be picking up one of my facing. So I picked up one of the facing. So this is one of the facing. I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch on it. So when I'm done running a stitch on it, I'll flip it over, use a hemming gun to hold the two fabrics in place. Alright, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Then don't forget to fold this down part, please. So this is what I have. This is what my back piece is looking like. Now I'm going to go ahead and close up my back side. That is from this zip area down. I'm going to be marking, let me fold it this way. I'm going to be marking about 10 to 11 inches for my zip and zip opening. Okay, so I'll place my tape from the top and I'll go ahead and mark 11 inches. This is how where my zip is going to stop. Then for the bottom part, I'm going to mark 7 inches for my slit because it's going to have a slit. Then remember we used 1.5 inches for our zipper allowance. Let's assume we worked with 1/4 of an inch for stitching the lining and the fabric together. So we left with 1.25 inches. That is what I have here. I'm going to go ahead from here now. I'll close it down, then insert my zip. So after this, I'm going to be introducing my front piece. This is my front piece. I'm also going ahead to join it together. Now I'm going to join my two shoulders together. That is the front shoulder and the back shoulder together. When I'm done, I'll go ahead and fix my sleeve to it. So guys, this is what my sleeve looks like when I'm done joining. Remember I said you're going to pleat one on top of the other, the longer one. So this is what it's looking like. Now I'm going to be joining it to my shoulder piece. So I'm going to find the center point of my sleeve where I notched. Place it right sides facing each other. I'll go ahead and join it. When I'm done, I'll go ahead and shape my dress. Okay, so guys, when we are done shaping our dress, the next thing we are going ahead to do is we are going to measure what we have around our neck. Okay, so that's what I'm going ahead to do now. Just measure your neck round, whatever you have. So I have about 21 inches. I have about 21 inches long. That is how long, like the round of my neck, the measurement I have. So that's 21 inches. When I divide it, I'll be having 10.5 inches. Okay, then the boldness of my band is going to be 2.5 inches. When I fold it, it's going to, let me work with 3 inches. On a fold, it's now going to be 1.5 inches. All right, that is what I'm going to have. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Now I'm going to bring my neck piece. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and fold it into two this way, then go ahead and attach it to my neck piece. So at this point now, I think this band is a little bit big, so I'm still going to go ahead and reduce it. Maybe let me say by half an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and so we have about 2.5 inches left. So go ahead and fold it back and attach it to your sleeve. But I would recommend before attaching it to your sleeve, please iron it down so that it will lay flat. That's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. I'm going to iron mine down. I'm done joining my band to my neck piece. This is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is if you look closely at the clothes, we have a rope at the back. Okay, so that's the next thing I'm going to go ahead and join. So I'm going to go ahead and join it to this neck area of mine. Mine is not bold. You can decide to make your own more wider than my own. Okay, so just cut out a strap as long as you want, as broad as you want. Go ahead, join it, turn it out, then attach it to your neck area. So I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch here, then pull it up.